Hello everybody, this is Brendan at Common Motor Collective. That's common-motor.com on the internet. Today we're going to be talking about carburetors, specifically the carburetors found on Honda CB360, CL360, and CJ360 bikes. These are key-in carburetors on the 745 series. Some of them are actually 747 series, but they're all basically the same that showed up on these bikes. So we're going to show you how to rebuild these carburetors. We're also going to show you all the different types of parts you could possibly need to go into them depending on what you're dealing with. And this set right here is pretty typical of what you're going to find on most bikes that we're wrenching on. So let's dive on in and take a look at the parts, pieces, and how to put these guys back together. So here is a macro view of all the potential parts that your carburetors could need for a proper rebuild. Now, you may not need every single one of these pieces, but in an absolute worst case scenario, here it all is in front of you. And we're going to go through and kind of show you more specifically what we have here. But just real quick, going across, intake manifold clamps, intake manifolds with gaskets, carburetor diaphragms. This is a carburetor O-ring kit. This is a standard carburetor rebuild kit. There's actually two of them here. And here are a couple extra carburetor pieces that aren't in the typical rebuild kit, but you can actually add and we carry here at the shop. And finally over here is a main jet main jet kit in case you're running pod filters or new exhaust and you have to rejet your carburetors. Well, more specifically, we'll show you some details of every single one of these pieces and why you might need them and where they're going to go in the carburetor. So what we have right here are the carburetor rebuild kits. This is a standard rebuild kit that fits all of these carburetors, and actually we have two of them here. Here's one laid out with all the pieces, and we'll go through that, and here's the second one here. You do need two carburetor kits because the bike has two carburetors, so make sure you order two kits. Here's what comes with it standard. This little guy right here is the idle jet, sometimes known as the pilot jet. It's a number 35. On top of it here, this is the jet needle. This is the needle that actually goes into the body of the slide. Above this is the idle mixture screw, and it actually has an O-ring installed in this little groove here, and this spring slides onto the end of the screw here. This O-ring here is for the drain plug in the bottom of the bowl. This washer is for the carburetor vacuum, the port on the side of the carburetor for the vacuum synchronization. Here's our new main jet. It's a number 100 that comes in these kits. And then here's a new float needle and float needle seat with O-ring. And then the O-ring on the outside of it is the float bolt O-ring itself. This is typically what gets swapped out when you're doing a standard carburetor rebuild. However, we know that there are a few pieces that you may need that aren't in the kit. So these guys down here, these are discharge nozzles for the main primary jet and the carburetor. These typically stay in the body, and we'll show you on another casting where they are. If you need them, contact us directly for them. Right above it, these are throttle shaft end plugs. The carburetor actually comes with some stamped plugs in it, but often they are missing, and so we have these machined up for us to replace them just in case. It is part number 6044. They're huge. So up here we have a few parts that are going to come out of the carburetor that have to be reused. We don't have any replacements for them, so they have to be cleaned and put back in the carburetor. Right here is our number 68 jet. We do have replacements available for it. It's the secondary jet as we call it, or the main jet as Honda refers to it. Carburetor drain plug here has to be reused, but we do have replacements. And then up here, this is the secondary jet emulsifier tube. This is actually where the air and fuel mix together and spray into the body of the carburetor. Oftentimes these are stuck in there. They have to be gently pressed out. And then right here we have the primary jet, or the needle jet emulsifier tube. Has the same function. This is the one that has the threads on it and the hex head. Again, be very careful with these parts. They have to be cleaned and reused and not damaged upon disassembly. Alright, so this is our part number 6000, which is a carburetor O-ring kit. And one kit does both carburetors. There's only 4 O-rings per carburetor, and we'll show you where each of these goes. The question people might ask is, why do I want this kit? Well, if the brass pieces in your carburetor are in really good shape and you're just trying to go through and refresh the carburetor and not change the brass out, all you need is the O-ring seal. So this is a way to get back into your carbs, clean them, put it back together without having to buy a whole kit. So I'll start with the big O-rings here. This is the flipple O-ring, which fits in the groove of the flipple here. And we'll show you a couple tricks on how to put that in. This next O-ring here, this like large one that's kind of a skinny profile, is the O-ring for the float needle seat. So here's the seat, it would go in that groove there, and the float needle would go into the end there. The next one is the drain plug O-ring, which goes here. Oftentimes they admitted O-ring, people forget it's supposed to be there, but it is. And the very last, this little tiny kind of fat donut O-ring goes to this idle mixture screw, and we can see here, get it out, this groove here, that O-ring goes in the groove there. So that's it as far as the 360 carburetor in terms of O-rings. So only 4 O-rings and 4 different parts, and one kit does 2 carburetors. So what we have here is our main rejet kit for the 360 carburetor. That's part number 6011. And what the kit includes is 5 different pairs of jets, starting with a 102, 105, 108, 112, and 115. We actually have 100s available and 110s available, but we don't include them in the kit because the carburetors came stock with a 110, and the rebuild kit comes with a 100. If you need those jets, contact us directly and we can add them to the kit. A couple new flipple O-rings, because you're going to be taking the flipple on and off a few times to get the jetting right. And then right here, these are some main needle shims. And oftentimes people get confused on the main jets. Let me show you right here how they work. This is our main emulsifier tube with the hex head on it. Here's the jet, and they thread together just like that. Oftentimes this jet is stuck in this tube here, so people think it's one piece, but they're actually 2. So that's how the main jet fits. And then here's our needle, and the shim just goes underneath the needle, and what it does is it raises it up in the slide, and so the jet, the needle actually moves a little bit further up and creates a richer mixture throughout the RPM band. So that's where the main needle shims go, just like that. Carburetor diaphragms. So these carburetors are very sensitive to the condition of the diaphragms that are in them. We do have replacement diaphragms that are available. They're really high quality. Actually, they're better than the originals, in my opinion, that were in there. It's CMC part number 6027. On this one here, we actually can see that the diaphragm's in really good shape. We check it both top and bottom so it can be used again. I usually tell folks you got a 50-50 shot. Half the time they're good to reuse, and half the time they got to be swapped. As you can see, like on this one here, well, it's roached, and we're going to clip it off real quick because we also get a lot of questions on how to install the diaphragms. Just as a heads up, diaphragms are sold individually. They're not sold as a pair. So I'm going to put these aside real quick, and we're going to actually cut off this guy. We're going to clip off these. There's 2 plastic rings that hold the diaphragm in place here. We can actually kind of tear it off a little bit. There we go. And I'm just going to use a set of wire cutters here. Hopefully just clip them off. There we go. 1, 2. I'm going to clip them on that side too. Let me come off. 1, 2. Just like that. So now we have this groove here. It's about a 1/4 inch tall groove, and our new diaphragm, move those out of the way, the middle of it, you can see it, it's a bit thicker, like that, and it just pulls into the groove here. In fact, put it on something like this. Ideally I'd want to clean the groove first, but kind of goes on like that. And then we end up putting a little bit of super glue between the edge here and holding it in place. So that's roughly how you put these diaphragms on. It's actually a pretty simple install. So just take that one off. That's tight. Yeah, just got to get all that gunk out of there before we do anything with it. But yeah, that's how you take them off. Alright, so the last piece we're going to talk about is the intake manifold for the carburetor. For the CB360, it's part number 6026. Some people call them carb boots, some people call them carb flanges, whatever you want to call them. The intake manifolds is what we call them. So this part is a notorious part on the engine to leak air. And so we have a new one right here, and I'm going to show you how pliable it is, and it's nice and flexible. It also has a little kind of, I don't know if you guys can see that here on the camera, there's also a little ring that's cast into the body here, that ring locks onto this groove on the casting. Next to it I have a used one here, and it's like super, like I'm pushing really hard, it's stiff. And what happens is with the old ones is they don't seat onto the body very well, and you can't get them to clamp down tight enough and they leak air. So this is one of the few parts that no matter what bike I deal with personally, I change them out without question. So our kit includes the manifold with a gasket, and we also have a new clamp for it as well. This is a nice stainless steel hose clamp that is lined. You can see this little piece of metal here, which keeps it from rubbing into the grooves. Here, so I can move it aside. See a little bit better what I'm talking about. It's a nice marine grade stainless steel clamp that doesn't dig into the manifold. It actually grabs a bit better than the factory clamps do. I run these on my bike because they just grip like they're supposed to. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick though on the manifolds why they need to be flexible. When you put them on, I'm actually going to feel it clip on and seat. I'll do it again. Feel it stop, it's hitting that ring in there. I'm pressing and it seats. And then you put the clamp on, it seals tight. Again, these things are notorious for vacuum leaks, so I highly suggest changing them out. They are sold individually, so you need to buy a pair, So just want to kind of compare a new one versus a really old one. I don't even know we can get this on here. I'm pushing like really hard and it's still not seating right. So, and now imagine when you try to put the carburetors on the bike against the cylinder head, you can't even get that kind of pressure on it. So this thing's toast, and that's pretty typical of what we see on the bike. So change out your intake manifolds.